Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today I'm back on my beloved Green-Black Turbodepths, which I haven't been on for a little while because I've been trying to play the new stuff and there was rumours of a bug with Not of This World, so I kind of wanted to give it a break for a little bit, but now we're back at it. So what is this deck, quickly? We win the game with Dark Depths. So this makes it 2020 when it's got no counters on. We either strip out all the counters with Hexmage, or we make a copy that has no counters with Stage. That's basically the deck. We have 12 tutors to make that happen. We have fast mana to make this happen quicker. We have disruption and protection, so Pithing Needle for things like Wasteland or Karakas. Thoughtseizes, Inquisition to take important cards out of our opponent's hand. Not of This World to protect it from removal. We've got a few silver bullets buried away in the land, so we've got a couple of Boseijus that we can find with our Sylvan Scrying. We've got the Bojuka Bog, which is very good with Elvish Reclaimer. We can just hold that up and our opponent can't do graveyard shenanigans, which is really important in the format right now. We have a Sejiri Steppe to protect it, a Ghost Quarter to take out a problem land like Wasteland or Karakas, that sort of jam. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We've played this deck many times before. If you're interested in it, check out my Patreon. I've got a detailed guide that gets updated every month talking about the current meta and how it impacts the deck and any changes that I'm playing at the moment as well. Sideboard wise, let's have a quick rundown. We've got more of the effects that we have in the main deck. So we've got another Not of This World when it's good, another Pithing Needle when that's good. We've got some artifact hate in the form of Null Rod and Collector Ouphe. A little bit more discard if we need to complement our suite in the main deck. Abrupt Decay, Opposition Agent, Blood Moon, Mages of the Moon. These things get nailed by this, as does Ensnaring Bridge. That's our way of winning through that. And we have a one-of Khalni Garden. So in the matchups where Sejiri Steppe is bad, they're the matchups where people are bringing in things like Shoulder's Edict. If that's like the removal spell that our opponent's going to have, so the Sejiri Steppe isn't going to be doing very much, we swap out for a Khalni Garden. I'm not convinced on this, but I want to try it out. Last time I tried it, I wasn't very happy with it, but that was quite a while ago. So it's worth trying things out every now and then as the format changes around and see if that's what we want to be doing. So without further ado, remember to like and subscribe and let's get Turbodepthsing. Alright, welcome to round one. This is not a hand that actually does anything, so this is a pretty easy mulligan. This is another hand of lands. It doesn't go anywhere, but we have a little bit of protection in the form of these Boseijus, which can nail some interesting stuff. But then our Dark Depths, we do have our combo piece. But is this really where I want to be? We're going to be trying to draw either one of our 12 tutors or one of our 8 things that go with Dark Depths. So that's 20 cards in 53. Or, yeah, 53, because we're going to put the Urborg on the bottom. Those odds are pretty reasonable. That's better than a 1 in 3 shot. 2 draws to do that. Statistically, we're odds on for that. I think we're going to try it. We'll get rid of an Urborg because we don't really want 2 of those. I think we'll play out the Urborg because this means if we draw a Hexmage, we can try and go next turn. It's not an ideal hand. But I think it's got some purchase. This would be quite funny if our opponent just griefs us and get nothing for the troubles. A basic island and a ponder. If this is some sort of blue-white control deck, it's one of our less favourable matchups, unfortunately. We don't really like playing against blue-white decks, or just white decks in general. So we probably play out this Bayou, so that we have access to green mana here. Moving on, we keep the Boseijus in hand. This one play does mean that if we draw a Thespian stage, it's going to be a turn slower than if we played out the Dark Depths. But I think it's worth protecting our Dark Depths a little bit. They did shuffle with a ponder, so they're not floating anything good on top, which makes the Thoughtseize a bit better. Force of Negation, pitching Force of Will. Okay. What does that tell us about our opponent's deck? It's more likely to be on the control spectrum than it is on any other sort of spectrum. Alright, blue-white control. Stoneforge Mystic. Okay. They didn't want the Stoneforge to get nailed here. So they're going to go get Cauldra, or they could have something else. Yeah, it's Cauldra. Okay. So we're not looking at any sort of weird breakfast build with Force of Negations. An Elvish Spirit Guide. I didn't really want to play that out. If we Ghost Quarter our opponent, they're very much going to be having more basics there. I guess we play our... I think we have to play out the Dark Depths here. Because we're going to be under the gun on it, time-wise. In terms of the clock our opponent's going to be hurling at us. Pretty sure we're not going to win this one, though. Our hand did not pan out, which is why I don't like keeping hands that don't just make a 20-20, even though we had 20 hits in our deck. to get us there. So I'm still testing the build with the 4 Reclaimers. I haven't had the most amount of leagues with it. So I'm trying to adjust my mulligan mass based on that, and this hasn't panned out, which is important testing. All right, let's take a hit from the Germ. We can't get rid of it because it's indestructible, so this Boseiju does nothing. They didn't attack with their Phyrexian Germ Token. That's confusing. All right, let's take a peek at our opponent. Force of Will, Pitching Ponder. What are they about here? Oh, they misclicked, that's why I didn't attack. Hopefully we can capitalize on that, but it might not end up matching. We could have played out a Ghost Quarter then. But the Ghost Quarter is pretty much just there for like Caracas type things. Okay. So we're going to take 8 and we're going to get stuck behind the Monarch from our opponent. They do only have 1 card in hand though. So if they don't have the specific card they need, then we can still be alright here, which is what our deck does. It only cares about very specific cards. Is this a turn we get there? It could be the turn we get there. So we can do this in our opponent's turn. But that does risk them drawing additional cards, but they probably have Prismatic Ending in their deck. So I think the play here is play out the Ghost Quarter, and then we will make a 20/20 in our opponent's end step and hope that's good enough. We do it before they draw the card for the purposes of counter magic. 5, 6, 7, 8. We could try and block here to save some damage, but I don't think that's worth it. I think we're on the does our thing get us there or not plan. 3 cards in our opponent's hand. This trigger on the stack is when we're going to fire off our crop rotation. Let's go to this Ghost Quarter. If you got a counter spell for this, we lose. Okay. So saying there's a chance. It doesn't really matter if we do this now or later in terms of wait until this trigger's resolved. Alright, we will keep the one with no counters on. This will make us a 20/20. We might be gaining 20 life. But there could be like some kind of stifle, so it's worth doing it before the trigger resolves. I'd love to draw Not of This World right now. Or they're going to plow this in the upkeep. I think they should plow it in their turn. Because if we have something like a Legacy's Quick Reflex, they might get 2 stabs at it. If they're going to kill it, they should definitely try and do it before we draw a card for turn. Feels like our opponent has the answer to this though. Right, let's take a lookie over there. It's unlikely to have something that messes it up in combat. Yeah, so there's the plow. So we bought ourselves some more time, but we are quite far behind. Jace the Mind Sculptor is the sort of thing that can get them back in this game. So we really won't have to deal with that. I will play out a Boseiju because we're going to need more mana to activate, but we need 2 pieces and we're getting beaten down by, what, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is a 3-turn clock with our opponent drawing 2 cards every turn. Not feeling fantastic about this one. We took our shot though. I think the testing on the mulligans to keep, I don't think we should necessarily be adjusting them based on the Elvish Reclaimer. We should just enjoy the fact that the Elvish Reclaimer lets us... do we want to play this out right now? It can block, or it can steal the Monarch. I think we'll play out. They're just going to Prismatic Ending it at the end of the day. But yeah, so like I was saying, I think the maths for the Reclaimer, we shouldn't necessarily be keeping hands because we've got 4 more Reclaimers to draw into. But I think it means that we're less likely to mulligan hands because we'll have more hands with a Reclaimer in, if that makes sense. But it's important to test these and see how they feel. Obviously, the numbers were in our favour there, and they didn't quite come to fruition. But our deck is very reliable at doing what it's doing, so I think going to 5 would have been a better shout. Yep, so there's a Prismatic Ending. But that delays them putting anything else on the board. Alright, so 5, 6, 7, 8. So what can we draw in 1 turn that does it for us? Nothing is the answer to that one, isn't it? Alright, we got toasted pretty hard there. I don't believe our opponent's running Wastelands in their deck. So I think we can consider Pithing Needle to come out. We definitely want this Not of This World in. Our opponent could be running something like Back to Basics or possibly Blood Moon. I think Duresses are going to be useful here. And we probably want some amount of decays in the deck. So what here isn't that useful? This is not a Bojuka Bog matchup, so we can trim one of those. The Boseiju is another answer to Blood Moon type effects, so we don't need to go all the way in on these decays. We can probably board out a little bit of fast mana, because this isn't necessarily a super quick matchup. Now, the Pithing Needle could be for Caracas, but we still do have the Ghost Quartz to cover that if we need to. And we can trim a needle here. What is this giving us? A couple of Duresses. Do we want the Abrupt Decays? I think they're going to have Caracas. So having a Pithing Needle for Caracas feels helpful. Maybe we trim one of these to get a decay in. Then we have 3 answers to a Blood Moon that I'm not really expecting out of our opponent, but it could be in there. I think that's probably reasonable. I don't think we want any of these other pieces. So there is an option that you can do in this matchup where you board in the extractions and you try and hit the plow and take all the plows out. I'm not a big fan of that, and hopefully the Reclaimer means that we'll be using up their removal on other stuff. Alright, now this is a much better hand. So this is turn 1 Thoughtseize into potentially turn 2 Depths combo if we draw a Hexmage. So it's worth getting this Thoughtseize down turn 1 because our opponent could brainstorm and hide in future. Okay, Prismatic Ending, Teferi, Time Reveler. None of these things are that exciting. I think it's probably the Ponder. It digs slightly deeper than Brainstorm. But they have 2 of them. I think it's the Ponder. This Ponder is better selection when you're looking for one specific card than Brainstorm is. Because you get to look at 3 and then look at a 4th when you shuffle. And because we don't care about the overall quality of our opponent's hand, we only care about specific cards they can have, it's better to hit the Ponder there. Our opponent's cracking their Flooded Strand. They're playing at quite a slow pace, but you don't know what else is going on in people's lives. Alright, so they've gone for a basic island, which I don't think is correct against us. I think they want to be going for a Tundra. However, if our opponent is running Blood Moon, that makes the island get a better play. So I am now slightly more expecting Blood Moon out of our opponent than I was before. Alright, so there's the Ponder. We shuffle their library. We don't get to do all of the things here. I think we play out the Depths in case we draw a Hexmage. I'd rather try and win the game that way. We're not going to play out a Petal into this onboard Prismatic Ending. We're just going to pass. We do have the Spirit Guy, which we can use for green mana if we, for some reason, need to Boseiju something. So the reason you want to play out the Thespian stage there instead, potentially, is so that you can play around Wasteland into Surgical Extraction. But I don't believe our opponent has that in their deck. But it's a possibility. Okay, so our opponent has got 2 mystery cards over there. Okay, so there's a Hexmage. So we're rewarded for the exact thing I said that would happen. So let's cast it off of this. So if we play out this Lotus Petal, we can make the 2020 off of Thespian stage and Hexmage if that's relevant. And if our opponent spends their white mana on Prismatic Ending, is that right? Prismatic Ending our Lotus Petal, then that's 1 less white pip to try and kill our creature with. Alright, so our opponent's turn after they resolve the Brainstorm on our end step. Are they going for the Pending on the Petal? They are. That is interesting. Sure. So they must have another white source. No. Our opponent could be running Solitude. A Murktide Regent. Okay, I see. I see. It's the chump block into the Teferi. But because we can just go again, this is perfectly fine to do. Let's make it 2020. They're going to chump block for a turn. Bounce with Teferi, but then we're just going to replay another Merit Liege. So this has to block. I wonder if us playing out the Lotus Petal gave them the Prismatic Ending target that they needed. Actually, no, they always had a target. They could always just fire it at the Hexmage because there's an intervening if clause. Right, so there's the Teferi. They're going to bounce this. We can stop them drawing a card. So this is a really interesting point. We can stop them drawing a card by making another 2020 and legend drawing our own Merit Liege. However, if our opponent has a white source into a Prismatic Ending here, then that is bad for us. So this is an interesting conundrum. Do I want to stop our opponent getting another card? Or are they trying to play us into a Prismatic Ending? So they got 48 cards in their library. They need a white source regardless to do anything. I think we fizzle the card draw here. We don't know if they're running Solitude, but it's possible. We'll keep this one. Their draw fizzles. If they just go white source prismatic ending, then they got us. All right, they didn't do that. That's lovely. Okay, do I want to change anything here? Pithing Needles for Teferi is kind of a thing, but generally we should be trying to beat around the Teferi anyway. I don't think we want to go up to another Pithing Needle. No, I like how we sideboarded here. I think this is fine. There is an argument for going lower on petals so that we have things that can't be prismatic ending, but like I said, I don't mind our opponent prismatic ending them when we play them out. And this gives us black mana for the purposes of Hexmage, so it lets you have those really bonkers turn ones. Okay, let's just go back in with this. Alright, this hand does get there with some protection. It's not the fastest thing because we have to play out an additional land for our Dark Depths to work. Because we can't get the Sylvan Scrying without playing out a green source. Which means we can't just go land, land, stage, and win that way. Island Ponder, the classic start. Right, over to us. Well, well, well. That does work relatively nicely for us. I think we will play out the Urborg here. We can just go 1, 2, 3. But we're going to want a 4th land so that we can have the crop rotation up. But we're not going to give our opponent anything to counter spell, so it's unlikely this crop rotation actually counters our opponent's spells. The Yavimaya. I guess we could have played the Thespian stage out, which would have given us the opportunity to draw the Yavimaya there. But this gave us the opportunity to draw Hexmage, which is a 4 of in our deck. And we can also test our opponent's counters to try and make these more likely to resolve. Alright. If our opponent plays a Blood Moon, we can just play our basic forest, Sylvan Scrying for Boseiju, and then use it. In here? I think we are. Back to basics. Okay, that is a different problem. Alright, I think we wait 1 turn here. Or do we wait 2 turns? If we wait 2 turns, we can Thoughtseize and crop rotate. So we can have 2 layers of protection. I guess we'll see what our opponent does. They have no white mana. This lack of white mana makes me think that I should be just firing this off. Alright, they're scooping it. They thought the back to basics would do that. So this is the Blood Moon. This also doesn't work unless they have counter magic for our Sylvan Scrying. So I didn't like our mulligan decision in the first one, but it was a bit of testing to see if the additional tutors that's given us more draws to get there would be enough. And I didn't really feel like it was. But that's important testing. We got the match anyway. This is a difficult matchup. I don't necessarily like how our opponent approached this, but I don't know what was in their hand. But if that's all their hand did, why are they keeping that? And if they play the back to basics, I guess they didn't know that we weren't going to be tapping our lands in the first few turns. But nevertheless, I'm not a big fan of trying to answer us with back to basics. Okay, let's go to round 2. Alright, we are in round 2. This one does get us there. We only have 1 source of green mana. But we have a Thoughtseize to pave the way. I think this is acceptable. Given the speed of the format now, I think it is also correct to Thoughtseize here. We can stop our opponent from maybe killing us turn 1. Lets us know if our Sylvan Scrying is going to resolve. Okay. Not a massive fan of what our opponent's up to here. Brazen Borrower is a thing that we can't really beat from this hand. Shardless Agent will be a turn 2 play. I think we can beat that. Alright, we'll play out this Petal, just in case we need an emergency crop rotation. Alright, so we can just pass the turn now. I don't know why we need crop rotation here, but it's possible when our opponent's not really going to be playing things that mess with our Lotus Petal anyway. I think this turn for our opponent is Thundering Falls. Yeah, going to get the Surveil off. And then they can untap and jam 10 power into play next turn. We have the Sejiri Steppe, which allows us to push through the Endurance as a blocker. Right, they milled off an island. Does that change anything here? Don't believe it does. Our opponent can't run days in their deck, so we have to do this. Get ourselves a Thespian stage. We play out the depths here rather than the stage in case we draw a Hexmage next turn, because that allows us to go a turn quicker. We're ideally looking for one of our 6 pieces of fast mana that we have left in our deck. That way we can go next turn. Otherwise we're going to have to take 10 and our opponent gets more looks at something good. Hoping that... Oh, the Wasteland. That's savage. Okay. I guess we play out the stage. So now we're in a little holding pattern where our opponent can't tap out of this Wasteland. But it does mean they can just make the thing next turn. And if they get itchy feet and make a mistake, we can capitalize on it. So we're representing the combo here through a piece of fast mana. So our opponent is hopefully going to be pressured here. They should just use their Spirit Guide to make the Shardless Agent anyway. Yeah, so they're going to get some Rhinoceri. Yeah, they're showing us their deck. It's all the sort of stuff we're expecting here. Okay. I think we're probably going to lose this Wasteland. Also, not having any green mana is a bit of a problem for us. So we take 10 this turn. We need to draw a Ghost Quarter. And then we only take 6 next turn. And then we finish on 2. So a green mana or a Ghost Quarter can do stuff here. Alright, they got more rhinos. They're icing our thing down. That's pretty good. So I get to make a 2020 here. This blocks here, but that doesn't get us where we need to be. Do we show our opponent the Hexmage when we're dead on board? I don't believe we do. Yeah, this matchup is not great. So they play Blood Moons in their decks, usually. They have Wastelands. They have bounce spells. So we kind of need lots of everything, which is not really a thing we get to do. How do we feel about Reclaimer? Seems like quite a good way to get through what our opponent's doing. The fast mana we also need here is the problem. How much are we into hand disruption? We only care about very specific things that we can kind of cover with these. So trim one of those. God, this is a horrible matchup, isn't it? So we can trim fast mana. There is an option here where we get rid of these and we rely on... Oh, we don't need the Bojuka Bog. And we rely on our Thoughtseizes and our Bayou and our Boseijus to get rid of a potential Blood Moon, which I think is acceptable. Should we play one more piece of Blood Moon Disruption? There's the question. If we play another piece of Disruption, it should probably be the Decay rather than anything else. Maybe we'll take one Decay over one Reclaimer, because the Reclaimer can still be a little bit slow. Okay, I can live with this one. Keep this. I think the play here is to get the Reclaimer up and running rather than Pithing Needle for a Wasteland. They're unlikely to Wasteland our Yavimaya. Alright, we got a Shardless Agent out of our opponent's hand. Possibly that can slow our opponent down. They have to counterspell the Reclaimer because on its own it does just make the combo go. Right, no Wasteland. An Urborg. So we could just double Thoughtseize our opponent here. That sounds pretty good. It's a little bit slower than I want to go, but we should be able to slow our opponent down as well. A Force of Vigor. Okay, we don't care about that one for now. We'll take the Violent Outburst. And do we take the Shardless Agent as well? Just really strip them off of resources. I think that's acceptable. Alright, so our opponent has nothing going on over there. We've slowed ourselves down a little bit for that. But that's acceptable. They're going to get the Surveil land here. Okay, Hedge Maze. They left a card on top, which is unfortunate for us. They have a Wasteland. Alright, well, we have a Pithing Needle. We want to tap the Urborg here, so our opponent's less likely to Wasteland it. We know our opponent's hand exactly. So we know they can't Force of Will here. You got a turn, opponent. What is your draw step? Wooded Foothills. We know the cards in their hand. Like, we've seen all of these cards. If they'd have played out a different land, then there was a possibility that we don't know what's going on. Okay. So we want to do anything differently. I quite like where we're at. We definitely can't remove any fast mana. The Reclaimer looks worse on the draw as well because it is a touch slower. No, I think we're just going to go in again. Okay, we can keep this. This is a hand that can beat their fast draws, but might struggle against their more permissive draws. We need to work out what we're doing. Oh, this Bayou is good though. Is that where I want to be right now though? If we play Bayou and Sylvan Scrying, we can get a 2-for-1 out of our opponent here. If we're doing that, we want to play the Urborg. Let's cast this. Because we have another green mana, I'm more happy to do this. So this is either him to Turak, or it's turn 2 2020 with backup. Alright, it was him to Turak after all. It didn't take one of their like Shardus agents or anything like that, so we probably haven't affected their ability to go off. I imagine this is a Surveil land, but if it's not, it means they can go right now. Okay, good. I like a little bit more time. So now we can jam our Reclaimer, Pithing Needle. Sure, let's try this first. They're cracking this Rainforest, so we don't name it. But do they have a play? Name Wasteland. And then we'll play little Elvish Reclaimer. That spell land means our opponent's very unlikely to be comboing. Alright, so they had another force pitching force. So we're looking for any of our tutors or Dark Depths itself. This is going to be a Shardus agent. A Magus of the Moon. That is a different problem, but we can deal with that. Surprisingly, Magus, you normally see... You would normally see the Blood Moon itself. And we did realise that Blood Moon could be an issue for us, but we do have an answer to it. We have less answers because we are relying on these Boseijus, but I guess maybe our opponents sort of next level us a little bit by playing around people having answers for Blood Moon, and now they're running Magus of the Moon. I'm curious about the thought that goes into that. Okay. So we're looking for a green mana source, and we're looking for a 1 of Abrupt Decay. A little bit sketchy. If we find a green mana source and an Elvish Reclaimer, and that works. We've got all of our fast mana that works too. I think we're going to be a little bit behind. There's just so much you have to care about in this matchup. They've got Wastelands. They've also got Blood Moon. They've also got counter spells. They've got a very fast clock, and they've got bounce spells. So they kind of attack us on all the angles that we fight on. That seems weird that they did it then. They must have been holding something up. They could have got 1 extra point of damage. That might not end up mattering, because they're coming in for what, 8, 9, 10, and they're coming for 10 the next turn. But if we end up with any sort of removal, maybe that could have changed things. Crop rotation. Nope, we're just dead. Yeah, not a big fan of that matchup, as you could imagine. It does have a lot of stuff. Alright, let's go to round 3. Okay, let's see how good this Elvish Reclaimer is. And we'll keep this. We've got quite a lot of fast mana to work with. I think we are just playing out this Boseiju though. I don't believe we're playing out these petals. We don't really want our opponent to know what we're capable of. Basic Forest into a Noble Hierarch. This is likely to be some kind of Fiend Artisan deck. But there is an outside possibility we're looking at a Bant deck, although they tend to run Delighted Halfling these days, or it could be Infect. And let's Inquisition our opponent and get a bit more information about what they're working with. There's a lot of Wastelands over there. And a Maze of Ith. Yeah. This is looking like a game where we need to find ourselves a Pithing Needle. There is the first Wasteland. And there is the Hierarch. They can attack for 2 here with their first Hierarch. Why can't we have a come into play tapped land with Pithing Needle's text? Just taps for colourless mana. I would run that. So we basically have to keep 2 mana open all the time. We get our basic forest here. There's a Maze of Ith out there as well that we need to beat. We only have 1 Ghost Core in our deck. Well, our opponent's got something. This is looking like an endurance from our opponent. Obviously we can't go and fetch a land because our opponent's just got all these Wastelands and stuff going. I think we fire this Thoughtseize off. All that's going to happen is we're just going to make them play their endurance. Yeah, we can't really do anything until we find a Pithing Needle. Like we can beat the Maze of Ith, but the Maze of Ith plus a double Wasteland is something we're going to need some more resources to beat. They left the card on top with a Surveil. A Ramunap Excavator. Well, that's pretty terrible news for us, isn't it? There's the other wasteland. Well, the Bojuka Bog doesn't really help here. We probably just end up getting a swamp. Okay, they've given us a shot here. Okay. So we can go and find a Bojuka Bog, take out both these wastelands. They can't recur them with Ramunap Excavator. Alright, we're back on track. Get rid of those. Play this one out. We'll play out this Lotus Petal. Our opponent's got one mystery card. I don't think it's worth Thoughtseizing that one mystery card when our life total is going to be under pressure. Okay, they've given us an option here to actually win this game. This looks like a Maverick list. Oh, they had another wasteland. That's brutal. Alright, I'll take out the Bojuka Bog first. Sylvan Library, yeah, you've got lots of good things over there, haven't you, opponent? So the Not of This World can also cover the Maze of Ith for one activation, and all we need is to survive. What we need to do is to push through one activation. So we have played information on our opponent's hand here. This is the turn to draw one of our green spells, or Thespian Stage. That's not one of our green spells. Alright, so we play this out. Oh dear, oh dear. We're almost at hard casting Not of This World, only a couple of lands so we can hard cast on our Reclaimer. The third wasteland was maybe a little bit too much for us to get through. Our opponent's got probably 8 cards in their main deck that really matter to us in a big way, and that's the wastelands and the plows. The one of Maze of Ith they have is a fine thing that we can usually deal with. We can obviously deal with wastelands too, but not right now. Hexmage is also a useful draw. A Spirit Guide. That doesn't feel like a useful draw. So we play this out. We lose our Lotus Petals if we need to rotate that away. And they can fire it off and then go again anyway. I guess we take 4. So by not firing off the Thoughtseize earlier, that has helped us out a bit. There's an Endurance. Alright. This is going to shrink our Reclaimer. Not that that matters too much. So now they can attack for 5 or 4. So they'll probably attack with both of their creatures. I guess if they're really scared, they will attack with just the Ramunap. Sure. It's 1 less point of damage. That means they have a blocker in case we make a Marinage. We have a lot of problems to overcome to win this game. I don't think it's possible from this position. That's the Maze of Ith. Knight the Reliquary. Yeah, okay. You got me, you got me. We don't need to keep playing this one. Okay. I would like this other Pithing Needle, please. I would also like this Not of This World to protect our creatures. And then I would also like these Abrupt Decays. Hand Disruption, not great in this matchup. So they can come out. The Bojuka Bog does have some relevant text. But is it going to be doing enough? Like, it can stop recursion of their Ramunap, but we're trying to nail the Ramunap using our Pithing Needles and Abrupt Decays anyway. I think we can take out the Bojuka Bog here. Keeping our fast mana to get through any mana disruption they have is probably quite wise. Let's go in like this. We don't have the green mana, so we're going to be mulliganing this one. We don't have a tutor, but we have a lot of protection. So we've got 4 Hexmage, 4 Thespian Stage, plus 12 tutors. So that's 20 cards. I think we keep this one. So we get rid of probably a Hexmage, Spirit Guide here. I think we're going to want access to black mana, so I will be getting a Bayou here. Let's get Pithing Needle out. Once upon a time. Mother of Runes. The classic Maverick 1-drop. And there it is. This isn't a thing that impacts us, and it's kind of surprising it's still in. Unless they've got something that they're planning on protecting from Abrupt Decays. So we could Abrupt Decay that if that's a thing we're interested in, but I honestly don't think it is. I would like to play out this Dark Depths. I don't want to play out this Lotus Petal into a potential Force of Vigor and give them 2 for 1 on that. Like, we could Abrupt Decay this Mother of Runes, but I'd rather Abrupt Decay something like a Sylvan Library. No attack. Interesting. Each opponent sacrifices an artifact. Well, we only have one. So we tried to play around Force of Vigor and got beaten by Pick Your Poison there. Not the ideal. Alright, our hand is really not panning out. So we could be seeing something like a Wasteland soon. Scrib Ranger. So this can technically block for a whole bunch of turns. They've been pretty cagey with their mother. I'm not expecting it to attack now. We have 2 pieces of fast mana, so we can get right back in this if we need to. Okay, so they're replaying their Lush Portico to get some more Surveil. That's pretty nice tech. Maverick's an interesting deck. It's one of those decks where you look at it and go, how does this necessarily compete in Legacy? But there's so many little edges and stuff you can do with it. Quite fascinating. It's not my sort of deck, but I think it is pretty cool still. I'm glad that that is there for people who like it. Alright. If I play out the Lotus Petal, it means we have an Abrupt Decay if we want it. But I think we're just going to hold. I'm interested that they got rid of the Swords to Plowshares, and it's one of the best cards in the matchup. Right, we're going to see a Knight of the Reliquary here. And now our Abrupt Decay doesn't look very good. They can also use Scrib Ranger to do multiple activations of their mother. I think we're just going to lose this one if I'm being honest with you. It's not really coming together. A Vampire Hexmage, you said. Now that does change things, doesn't it? So we have to proactively do this, I think. I'll play out this second Depths so that we can't be surgical and have all of our depths removed. So next turn we can... So they're going to get something like a Caracas. And our plan for that is not of this world. And then they're going to try and block us with a Scrib Ranger. And we're just going to go and get the Sejiri Steppe and push through. Now if they have a Plow on top of this, then we're in trouble. They did bin a Plow earlier, which kind of suggests they might have another one. But against this Knight of the Reliquary, we need to try and get things going as soon as we can. So we're losing our Elvish Reclaimer. Okay. That stops us for tutoring for the Sejiri Steppe. Pretty shrewd move from our opponent there. So this is going to be the Caracas, I would imagine. There it is. Now they should fire this on their turn. Yep. This means Plow is still live for them. Because of the existence of things like Legolas's Quick Reflexes, you want to be trying to do stuff on your turn and your opponent's turn, and you want your opponent to have less mana up at all times when you're interacting with them if they're playing Dark Depths. We just need to get through this Scrib Ranger somehow. They're untapping the Knight of the Reliquary. Okay, a little bit worried about that. This is probably the Mazavith, just as an extra insulation level. Yeah, this is not a good matchup, is it? The deck that can do all the spooky land stuff and also has a bunch of plows. Right, let's go to attacks. There's a lot to get through, and this Mother of Runes is actually relevant. They're going to get a Sejiri Steppe here. A Scrib Ranger, I think. Right. Yes, it's a bit of a hard lock. They only have the one forest for now. But as soon as we find a tutor, we're okay. We just need to make sure that they keep bouncing this land so they can't do lots of Knight of the Reliquary stuff. Because Knight of the Reliquary requires a forest or a plains, so they have to keep bouncing their forest to untap their Mother of Runes. Then that buys us another turn. Obviously that's only one turn here, but it buys us another turn. Oh yeah, the Caracas. But we've got more time. There's going to be a Dryad Arbor, so this is an additional forest. This is also a thing they can untap to generate mana. Sacrifice. Oh, so they just used it to get another. Yeah, okay, so they got a Wasteland here. Do I think we're going to win this game? I don't think we are, and I don't think it's worth putting you lovely people through watching me lose slowly to this. Alright, not a great matchup again, but when we're playing like a linear combo deck like ours, there are going to be matchups that are more polarized than if you're playing something that's got game against everything like Delver. Like we do have game against everything. Making a 2020 on turn 1 or 2 can win a lot of games, but we are going to struggle against some matchups with like a bunch of Wastelands, Caracas, Plows, or like the Rhinos deck. Okay, let's go to round 4. Alright, our opening hand for game 4 is a turn 3 combo with Thoughtseize along the way. That seems pretty reasonable to me. I will keep this. Once Upon a Time. What flavour of Once Upon a Time deck is this? Is this Cradle Control, which is a good matchup? Is it Maverick, which is a bad matchup? Is it Cloud Post, which is a good matchup? Which one is it going to be? Interesting. What are we supposed to do? So the chances of them being... Well, they're going to be a green deck to be running that, I would imagine. I think they kept a 0-lander with Once Upon a Time. So it's likely that the decays are good. And it's likely that these discard spells are bad. And we can grab another Pithing Needle. Do we want... There's Not of This World. Bojuka Bog's usually not great against these. Let's hedge in case they are a white deck. Let's try this. We got one piece of information to work with. Alright, this is good. We have protection against Wasteland. We can then Sylvan Scrying. We don't believe our opponent is a blue deck. Don't think there's any blue decks that run Once Upon a Time. Lion's Eye Diamond. This was not what I was expecting to see. Lion's Eye Diamond. What deck runs Once Upon a Time and Lion's Eye Diamond? Is this Madness? Could be. I play the Urborg here because this gives us multiple draws that get us where we need to be. Cracking their Bloodstone Mire. Lion's Eye Diamond. Does Madness run Once Upon a Time? It could do. Badlands. What are we supposed to name here? We can name Wooded Foothills. That's like the other land I'm expecting. So I'll put it down that way. They have Blazing Root Waller, which can certainly add some damages. Alright, I think they're playing Madness. Now, I could be horribly mistaken here, but I can't think of any other deck that would run Once Upon a Time and Lion's Eye Diamond. If we get starved on by a brew, then that's great, because we get to see a cool, exciting brew. Oh, look at that. Look at that read. That is some powerful understanding right there. So this is going to bring back both their Poxwalkers, which is not the shortest clock I've ever seen. So this is what, 3, 6, 7, 8? We do beat this, in theory. Take 8, then we take 8, then we take 5. And 8, 16 plus 5, and that's 21, isn't it? Okay, maybe we don't beat this. So we can just play out the Hexmage and prevent some damage for next turn. So we take 8, then we take 5, then we take 5, and then we kill them. That sounds like the maths works there. Or we can just try and kill our opponent right now. Just rotate this away. Gonna get Dark Depths. Make your friend and mine Vampire Hexmage. Right, let's just get rid of this now. We don't get caught up by anything random. We've got a Not of This World if our opponent has one card that deals with it. Claim of the Firstborn would be very funny. Or Claim the Firstborn, what it's called. This is a matchup that I quite like playing against. They're a quick clock, but they don't interact with us. So we can kind of just do our Goldfish, and our Goldfish goes in the sky. Alright, so we got that match there in pretty quick time. And I'm very impressed with my read of Once Upon a Time plus Lion's Eye Diamond. So there you go. That shows you how much Legacy I play. Alright, let's go to the final round. We're looking for the positive record now. Alright. We will keep this hand. Our opponent is a lovely human being who is known for playing Maverick decks. Dogs on Twitch. And that's going to be bad news for us. They also know that we're known for playing Turbodepths. But we also know that we play all sorts of stuff. Hopefully, we can get through it. Oh, wow. The old Dark Depths mirror, eh? Green Sun Zenith. This is going to be for a little Dryad Arbor. This is going to be a horrible matchup. Where are the Delvers of yesteryear? So I think the correct play here is to just play out this Verdant Catacombs and kind of keep our cards close to our chest. And then next turn, try and make a Hexmage when they don't have any, like, Wastelands or whatever. Thespian stage. Right. Now, the thing about Thespian stage is it allows them to copy our stuff, which I'm not a massive fan of. So we could go and get the Ghost Quarter here and just take out what they've got going on. Or we could enter into the dueling 2020s. So we'll go and fetch a Bayou. I want to have a little poke at my opponent's hand first, I think. This is going to be a tough one. A good player on a good deck that has a good matchup against us. Alright. Our opponent has a thing. We're going to take the plow. So next turn they get a 20-20. Then we get a 20-20. Then we have to try and beat the... Kind of need this black source. We can't play out the Dark Depths because then we just immediately get taken down by a 20-20. If we... This gets us through either their 20-20 or their endurance. So they're going to play an endurance at end step. Do you care about that? Problem is they can always just hold up this Dark Depths. If we Sylvan Scrying now, I think we have to do this. And then we're looking for a piece of black mana. Alright, so we've slowed ourselves down a little bit here. We are in bad shape. I think if we were on the play here, we'd be fine. But being on the draw is a little bit awkward. Oh, this is good. Our opponent tapping off that Thespian stage. Maybe we didn't need to play out the Ghost Quarter, but maybe they're only tapping out of that because we played the Ghost Quarter. So it's kind of an awkward one. Lotus Petal, please. Lotus Petal wins us this game. I'm pretty sure. A Lush Portico. So we have potent information on our opponent's hand. Lotus Petal off the top, please. Not of this world. Again, we can't play the Dark Depths. I suppose we could play the Dark Depths and just hold up the Ghost Quarter. Ugh, yikes. No, what am I doing? Oh, we messed that turn up completely. Oh, did we, though? I was thinking we could use we could Ghost Quarter ourselves to get this second black source. The problem with that is our opponent then gets a 20-20 and they have got other stuff around it. So I think we have to stop our opponent from making a 20-20 and use this Sejiri Steppe to get through. So I don't think it's a mistake. But I wanted to think about that one a little bit more while I pressed the yield through turn button. There's a Cradle. There's a Scavenging Ooze. That can put our opponent above 20 life if it eats creatures. But there's no creatures as of yet. Right, we are getting attacked down here. Alright, black mana source. That's not a black mana source. So the play of Wasteland, of Ghost Quartering our own thing to get a swamp. The problem is our opponent untaps, makes a Dark Depths, and then they can just hold back two things and slowly accrue value with this Grist until they win the game. So I don't think that's where we need to be. We just want to have our black source whilst holding up our Ghost Quarter so that we can actually just get one hit off of the Sejiri Steppe. I want to copy our Bayou. So if we Ghost Quarter this, they get to make Grist anyway. Yeah, we just have to let this happen. Yeah, this is a tricky one. A Wasteland as well. Awkward. The longer this game goes on, the better it is for our opponent because they've got a deck that accrues advantage every turn, whereas we have a deck that does a really powerful thing and has a limited amount of ways of protecting it. Our opponent is respecting us having something. Little do they know, we do not have anything. We are struggling. There is our Urborg. That is the thing we've been waiting for. We might be in a situation soon where we have to hope that our opponent... well, actually, that's not even going to work very well for us, is it? Thinking about it. So Wasteland us here. Then we can first strike this down. So we're taking less damage because of the Hexmage. Our opponent is going for the Ghost Quarter. That is interesting to me. So they're going to make a 20-20. And we're going to make a 20-20. And then we block. Yeah, this doesn't go well for us, does it? Alright. So they're going to make a copy of our Dark Depths. Get a 20-20. And we get a 20-20. Would have been a great time to have a crop rotation. We did not have a crop rotation. And unfortunately, I believe my opponent is going to be good enough to do the math here. So they attack with everything. We block the Marit Lage. then they get exactly 6 points in on us. We need them to make a mistake here. Sure, you can go up to 20 life. Have to make our opponent think we have something, which is a tall ask. Thalia. Okay. Just a little bit of extra protection against what we're doing. Yep, that's us dead. Yeah, so our opponent is playing like an Abzan Maverick looking list. Yikes. So, hand disruption, not great here. Not this world, pretty useful. Pithing Needles, useful. Abrupt Decays, useful. Bojuka Bog, not so useful. And I think we're going with this. Oh, this matchup feels difficult. And we keep running into it. Although I think when Modern Horizons 3 comes out, you'll see a lot less green-white and a lot more black-green. Because the white of the Reliquary is pretty exciting. And you'll certainly be seeing it on this channel a fair amount. No green mana. We can't keep this one, unfortunately. This is a turn 2. But it's a turn 3 if we want to play through Wasteland, which I think we probably do. I'll keep this. I think we have to bin off the Reclaimer. It doesn't really fit with what we're trying to achieve here. It's either the Reclaimer or the Decay. Keep the Decay. We might as well get to a blocker. Like I said, this game gets more and more favoured for our opponent as time goes on. Because their deck can just accumulate resources to deal with us. They're not principally a Dark Depths deck. I think that's just like a little sub-package that they have in their decks. They maybe have like one of each in the lands. So it's a bit unfortunate they had all the things that time, but such is life. Right, there is the Wasteland that we conveniently played around. A Thespian's Stage. I will play out Thespian Stage. I will cast this. We play my Lotus Petal first. Let's go and get our Dark Depths. So we have Hexmage next turn. Once upon a time. We do need to be aware of Force of Vigor. Another Wasteland. We'd like to see that Wasteland tap this turn. Our opponent knows we're presenting the combo next turn. This is just getting them a little friend. So we're trying to cast some kind of not of this world. That'd be what we would like to have in our hand. They did have the Force of Vigor, as I said they would. Okay. They have 2 Wastelands. So you can play out this Dark Depths and they just go Wasteland, we crack in response, they Wasteland again. And then we're just looking for... I'm just trying to work out if that's better to just get both these Wastelands off the board. Or if we're supposed to wait and play through it. I think we're supposed to wait and play through it. We have the best thing on the board right now. That can obviously change. Our opponent has to keep up this Wasteland at all times. And next turn they have to keep up both Wastelands, because if we play the Dark Depths out, we can Hexmage and Stage. And that beats our opponent's Wasteland. Now if they've got a Plough as well, that's not going to be good for us. So we can attack here, because if they have an Endurance, we get to make a 20/20. Another Hexmage. I'm down for more Hexmages. This actually allows us to play through our opponent's thing. I don't think we attack now. So next turn we have 3 different ways of making a 20/20. Our opponent only has 2 Wastelands. This also gives us another turn to try and draw into a Not of This World to keep our creature alive through something like a Plough. Opposition Agents. Right, the time for that being good has kind of passed here. A Fiend Artisan. Alright. Ah, Caracas. Just when I get a piece, they just get another piece. Okay. We're just going to keep playing this funny game, are we? Trying to think what creatures they have here. So we can get rid of this Caracas. And then we can go back to having 3 ways to make a 20/20. This game has been really funny. Every time my opponents drop something that ruins us, we then draw a thing that can answer it. And then they drop another thing that ruins us. At some point, this has to break one way or the other. The opponent's got a bunch of cards in hand still that could be things like Plough, which would make me sad. They could strip their Dried Arbor out into something better here. Oh, wow. No? Okay. Tapping out of one of their wastelands. They must have a plough. That's what makes sense here. Orcish Bowmasters. I see. So, if we ping this off... don't need to do that now, do we? Right, we'll sacrifice this so they don't get an extra 1-1. But because the wasteland is tapped, that works out alright for us in the end. If we draw Not of This World. I have to imagine our opponent's got something else here. A Boseiju. Right, this guy is bad right now. But it does allow us to Abrupt Decay something like the Fiend Artisan. Play this out. We play this out, we can get rid of the Fiend Artisan. Then we still have three layers of things to go through. We've just lost one of our layers. So, I think we play this out. I think we just have to go for it. With the trigger on the stack, we will Ghost Quarter this. Oh, we've caught this up. Yeah, we're supposed to Ghost Quarter at the start of that chain. Because now if we make this token here, they can just bounce with the Caracas before our Ghost Quarter resolves. Alright, so a pretty poor record for this deck. The old 2-3 is not really good enough. What I will say is we did play against a lot of horrible matchups. So 3 of the rounds we played were 3 very bad matchups. So like the Green-White Depths / Mavericky type thing, you know, where it's got the land toolbox and plows basically. That matchup is one of the worst matchups for our deck. And we played against that twice, which is very unusual because that deck is a very low played deck. But, you know, it's still a good deck, but it kind of nailed us twice. And then there was the Rhinos deck, which has fallen off quite a lot, which again is a horrible matchup, but, you know, we can just about get there sometimes. We were close on that one. We really want to be playing against like your Scams and your Delver decks and things like that. Like the main, and like the Red Prison, things like that. So the actual supposed most played decks is what we want to play against. But because Legacy is such a diverse format, sometimes you're going to have a league list like this. So let's talk about the list. So we never got to do any of the Khalni Garden stuff in sideboard, which was one of the main things I wanted to have a go with. The Reclaimer looked okay, but not more than okay. Last time I played the Reclaimer on the channel, it looked a lot better. So it's just a case of matchups. Not having 4 Pithing Needles did not make me feel great today. I think I would be inclined next time to bring in a Pithing Needle over this 4th Reclaimer. It just seems too important to have the 4 Pithing Needles at the moment. There's a lot of wastelands flying about, and we need to try and help that. Other than that, you know, the deck's fine. I play it quite often. It feels pretty good into a lot of the top of the meta, whether it's your Scam decks, whether it's your classic Reanimator or Delver. Like Delver is one of the best matchups for this deck. So when that's popular, which is right now, especially the Rug build or the Blue-Red build being the most popular, which is the easier matchup for us as well, rather than Grixis. So I like where we're at the moment, but the format is very diverse, so you're going to run into matchups that are horrible. I haven't managed to test it very much against the Black-White Scam deck, which has Plows, Solitudes, and Wastelands. So that's definitely some stuff for us to deal with. But I think we're better against that than we are against like a blue-white controller that's also got counter spells, because we get to resolve all of our tutors, which is a big deal. But I haven't really got much more to say about the deck for now. If you want to know more about it, check out my Patreon. That's where I ramble about it an awful lot. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this one, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.